Good afternoon and welcome to UMedTV. My name is Kemal Erkan. Today is August 4th, 2023. As we started our political series, this is another one today that we are going to have. Our guest is the Newcastle County Executive, Matthew Meyer. He is going to join us in a second, so I'm going to let him in, and we'll start our conversation from that point. All right, Matt Meyer is our guest. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Mr. Erkan, thank you for welcoming me today.
We want to get to know you a little bit, and I have some questions after that. Like what I find out that you were a school teacher, you're an attorney, entrepreneur, and finally you are doing the job that you have right now as the Newcastle County Executive. So we just want to get to know you a little bit more. What would you like to tell us?
Kemal, thanks. And thanks again for all you do for Delawareans. I think accountable care organizations and what you're doing behind the scenes with technology to make the provision of healthcare to Delawareans and to Americans is so vitally important and doesn't always get the attention and accolades it deserves. So thank you. I'm a Delaware kid. I grew up here, had all the benefits of being a Delawarean that enabled me to go away for college and law school, eventually moved to Kenya. I started a business in East Africa with some of the poorest young people on the planet, moved to Iraq and served as a diplomat for a year, embedded with the U.S. Army for 12 months in 2010. In Mosul, Iraq, came back home, worked briefly for Governor Markell, and then I taught 6th and 7th grade math on the east side of Wilmington, have 4 years experience as a public school teacher. And then back in 2016, inspired largely by students who I felt like weren't getting a fair shake. I was teaching an under-resourced school. I ran for office and I beat a 3-term incumbent. County executive, I'm the only county executive in Delaware. So I'm the tallest county executive, I'm the shortest, I'm the oldest, I'm the youngest, the only one. Kent and Sussex County don't have a directly elected executive. It's a little like being the mayor of the county. And we've reimagined what county government can be. We've infused resources into after school and summer programs that have enabled over 1,000 young people, middle school students, to learn software development. Over 40 of them have gotten internships, jobs with JP Morgan. We're using our sewer system. We're in charge of the largest sanitary sewer system in the state, which, by the way, is one of the most important healthcare innovations of the last 500 years, sanitary sewer. And we're using our sewers now to understand what's going on in public health in our communities. We used it to monitor COVID activity, the prevalence of COVID in various neighborhoods and communities. And we also, of course, bought one of the largest hotels in our county, 192-room Sheraton, and turned it into what's now known as the Hope Center. It's provided emergency housing to nearly 3,000 Delawareans and some individuals fleeing harm in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and the like. Temporary housing and been a bridge to permanent housing to over 270 families here in Delaware.
So that hotel that you are talking about, that's now like, it's like a homeless shelter, is that?
It is. It's a homeless shelter. And you can see it right on 95 as you're going south outside Wilmington.
From that side, it was kind of on its own. And I was kind of surprised. So how did you guys decide that? Actually, that wasn't part of one of my questions, but since you brought that up. So how did you guys decide that place to be the place for homeless people? So it was one of the 4-star hotels, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was a 3-star. I don't rate hotels. That's not controversial. It was a Sheraton where I'd been many a time. Many people tell me they got married there, had various receptions there. There was a crisis in the homeless population in 2018, 2019 in Wilmington, something called the Rick Van Story Center, which was emergency housing. The YMCA, which had a shelter in Wilmington, emergency housing, they both closed. And so you can imagine that the homeless population at that time was not decreasing, they were increasing, and the available beds was decreasing. So we were talking about what to do about it, and then COVID happened. So suddenly the homeless population spikes, becomes much larger. There are people that cannot afford to stay in their homes, aren't able to work. And the number of shelters, also shelter beds, reduced, as places like Sunday Breakfast Mission had to look first and foremost to make sure they were COVID safe. And so the number of beds reduced. And we had I put together a commission to look at how to protect vulnerable communities. They came up with an idea led by Carrie Casey and a woman named Renee Beeman to purchase a hotel and convert it into a homeless shelter. At the time, as you'll recall, hotels had no business. A lot of the hotels were sitting empty. And so we acquired it just as a temporary measure to put individuals who needed an emergency place to stay into a shelter. I was told we bought it, it would take 3 to 6 months to convert it. It was the dead of winter. It was December of 2020. And I gave my team 2 weeks. And so 14 days after we closed the acquisition, we opened the doors. And about 70 individuals in partnership with Jill Eppheimer at Friendship House and Family Promise, some other great partners, we opened our doors. And now we're 2.5 years into what I think has been an extraordinary experiment in providing service to our most vulnerable.
So now, Matt, you opened up your campaign, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and this is the primary that you are going to actually go through first for the governor's race. Now, I know there are a couple other people in the race. And a couple of weeks ago, Colleen Davis, she was my guest, and I asked her this similar question. Now, primaries are kind of interesting where you have to kind of like compete with your own people from the same party. But at the end of the day, you have to win. How do you plan to balance that? So what do you expect? Who do you expect that's going to be out there on the primaries? And how do you overcome that problem of not maybe crossing the line just because you are going to work with them after the primaries as a Democrat? Either, regardless of who you win or you don't, how do you plan to overcome that issue from your side?
So I guess a little over 6 weeks ago, we did announce that I will be a candidate for governor of the state of Delaware. I'm trying to be the first public school teacher in over a century to run our public school system, be the governor of the state of Delaware. Right now, I'm the only announced candidate. And on my team, we don't sit and speculate about who else is going to run or not run or whether we'll be the only candidate. What we do is we put our heads down. We make sure we're fundraising. And I encourage everyone don't be shy about going to mattmeyer.org. That's MEYER, 2 T's, mattmeyer.org. Watch our launch video, make a contribution. We think we have a tremendous record of success and an extraordinary vision for the future of this state. And we think as long as we stick to that vision, as long as we talk about the extraordinary things we've done, we've helped bring a Wegmans, very directly helped bring a Wegmans to the state of Delaware. We've taken Hockessin Colored School number 107C, which was a building that was critical to the Brown v. Board of Education decision back in 1954, what some say was the most important court decision in the history of this country. We've preserved that school and turned it into a center for diversity, equity, inclusion. I mentioned we opened the Hope Center, which is something the county government had never imagined doing before. We created a program called 1,000 Kids Coding. We've done all this, and in your tax bills this year, if you live in Newcastle County, your property taxes are actually going down. We decreased property taxes for the first time in over 50 years. For as long as there's been a county executive, there's not been a decrease in property taxes. We're proud of our record of success. To answer your question, we think by talking about the issues, by talking about our vision for the state, by talking about the fact we think in many schools and in many classrooms, the level of educational attainment and the quality of education our kids getting and our families are getting is not good. We need to address those problems. And I know there are those before me that have talked about it. We have a record to run on, that we talk about something, we assess a problem, and then we get the resources and we go fix it. And we're determined to do that in the educational space. We're determined to do that in healthcare. We're determined to continue doing that with housing.
So when we look at the overall issues in maybe every other state, but especially in Delaware, so the education, economy, corporate social justice, crime, energy, and climate crisis. healthcare issues, as you mentioned in the beginning, housing, as we discussed, immigration, and infrastructure. So now I've been in Delaware since 1998, although I was not born here. Since I choose to be in Delaware voluntarily, so then I'm hoping that, or I'm assuming that that makes me a Delawarean. So
a Delawarean by choice. I think it makes you, in some ways, a higher level of Delaware. You've seen the world. You've seen the world. You've seen, and you choose to be in Delaware.
Right. So like people with my background, so they usually want to be in bigger cities in like New York, Philadelphia, Miami, or they want to be maybe in California. So my brother-in-law, he was doing his master's here between 95 and 97 at University of Delaware. So that was kind of like the choice that I had to make while I was making that there. Like, okay, so why don't you go to Delaware? Like initially it wasn't the ideal place for me, but then I started to love it. And after 25 years, I still do. And I want to invest more and I want to do more for Delaware. And but one of the when we go through these big issues that I mentioned earlier, so I always think that Delaware should be in a better position as a smaller state. We are one of the smallest ones, where we can actually better manage our education, our healthcare system. Now, and I just want to tell you this, so then I will be discussing this with other people as well as they come to the show. Last night I was going home. I live in Wilmington. I have two options. I can either go from 141, or I can just go directly from 95. Sometimes now with the construction being done, 95 is faster in some cases. And taking exit 7 is a challenge. We also have a new office right on 600 Delaware Avenue. You probably know that building very well because apparently it was the landmark like last time it was a spa. The one before it was a bar. It was an
I used to get my hair cut there. Yeah, it was O'Friel's Bar, right on the corner, right?
Yes, yeah. So we own that building now. Mm-hmm. So we put primary care, and I started having some of my business meetings there. Now we first bought first half. Now we bought the rest. It will be in 4 or 5 months. It will be completed. And our mainly our primary care, our pulmonologists, our bariatricians, nephrologists, a couple other specialties. They will be there. So it's going to be a busy place. So and I will text you the video that I took. So many now I see homeless people at the light. Once you take that exit 7 on the ramp, now at least 3, 4, 5 people homeless and at the same time beggars. So and then I'm like thinking, so my house is about 2 miles from there, but my other office where we invested several millions, it's 2 blocks from that where that thing is. So like I want you to be my patient in that office. So I want like professionals in downtown, they should be comfortably, safely walk and not to worry about what may be happening in that area. So, and it's challenging. And I thought in smaller states like us, this would be more manageable. What do you think we can do to control, which actually this question has several different aspects. So there's the homeless population. I do work with Sunday Breakfast Mission every Thanksgiving and Christmas time.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your contribution.
YWCA is one of our partners. Food Bank is one of our partners. And I think last time I saw you was the opening of Brandywine Valley SPCA. So that was 2 summers ago, if I'm not mistaken. So we were on the groundbreaking. Yeah. So we have so many different ways of helping on one hand, but on the other hand, I still see some of these things kind of getting out of control. What do you think can be done for Wilmington first, but then also for the state of Delaware, from the homeless standpoint and from the crime crisis standpoint?
So in terms of homelessness, first of all, let's understand this is a national trend. If you go to cities around the country are grappling with homelessness, and many cities have homeless encampments within the city. that create a wide range of problems. The first of which is often a public safety problem. In Wilmington and in places across the county and the state, there are places with problems of homelessness, with issues of homelessness. I would argue that it's really minor compared to what you see, particularly in other cities and larger places around the country. There are about 600,000 people now that live in Newcastle County, and our homeless problem, given that size population, is really small, given the issues we have. Homelessness at its core is the problem of affordability and housing. And there are serious problems in affordability and housing that need to be addressed if we want to address our homelessness problem in a long-term way. I should also add that I think short-term solutions to homelessness, trying to clear people off the street, trying to take them and forcibly move them to places, almost never work for the long term. They can clear it temporarily when there's the Olympics or something for a week or 2 or 3. But ultimately, if it makes sense for homeless people to be back begging in a certain area, they're going to come back. It's not illegal to be homeless. If someone wants to stand out and beg for money, they, as long as they're not harassing or doing anything, they often have a right to do so. Our job is to make sure that we're getting out in front of them, offering them services, offering them opportunities that are different from what they have. That's what we've done at the Hope Center. I can tell you, without the Hope Center, without the great work of our affordable housing team, the situation would be much, much worse. We're in the process of investing $31 million. Normally, each year, the county invests $1 to $2 million in rehabbing housing and investing in new affordable housing. We're right now investing $31 million. There was just a $50 million investment yesterday that was announced by the federal government into the Department of Housing and Urban Development into Reach Riverside, building hundreds of affordable homes. I think that contributes to it. But also there's a mental health and substance use aspect that we got to make sure there's sufficient mental health treatment, substance use opportunities for people. Institutions like the Lyman House, as you may know, are absolutely critical to addressing these populations for the homeless and often near homeless individuals. So I think through policies that make sure these organizations and institutions are well funded, we make sure there's a safety net there and there's a temporary emergency place people can go to help them transition with case management to new places in the right direction.
So, I mean, I may disagree with you on this homelessness issue because I think it's also related to the crime rate as well. Because city of Wilmington per capita is one of the worst cities. I think it's
not anymore. It was. But the at least the violent crime rates in Wilmington, which 3, 4, 5 years ago were really among the worst in the country, by some argument, the worst in the world. They've come way down. And so the level of homicides, for example, and other violent crimes are way down, which is much better than what's happening with national trends. And that's also true. It's particularly true in areas of unincorporated Newcastle County outside the city. Now, Kemal, don't get me wrong. I agree. If there's a single incident of any crime, and especially violent crime, in Delaware and Newcastle County in the city of Wilmington, it's of utmost concern. And a single bad incident, as we know, can really be harmful to business, can be harmful to your patients. And so I know that in my supervision of Newcastle County Police, the second largest police department in the state, we take any incident of crime extremely seriously, and we'll continue to do that at the state level.
Now, I want to talk about the education a little bit. Again, and I know when I say this, you would trust me on this. It's a choice for me to be here. So I didn't have to migrate here for any other reason other than this was my choice. I didn't run from any country. I didn't left my country. It's just like, this is the country that I choose as home. And it's been, again, 25 years. So everything and anything that I'm actually discussing with you, I want for us to be better, especially for Delaware, because I do believe that Delaware is, there's so many opportunities for Delaware. So, and being in Delaware, and if it's promoted correctly, we can attract more businesses. which would help us to get more employment opportunities for those people out there. But when it comes to education, it's again 25 years. So you probably talked to Sean Donegan, who's actually in the same room with me right now. So he's 25, so his whole life is how much time I spend in this country and in this state. So when it comes to education, we are not doing good. So like we are kind of relying on the public school. Now, I don't have kids. Do you have kids, by the way?
I do not have kids, no.
I don't have kids either. I do have a really nice puppy, which I don't think people should have kids. They should just adopt a lot of puppies. So
do the puppies grow up and do the dishes?
But the kids don't do it. Kids just leave you. So I don't think I have seen any kids who are doing dishes. They're just headache.
Fair enough.
Just kidding. So, but what I was going to say is that from the education standpoint, many of my friends, they say that they cannot send their kids to public school. And like one of the reasons are the real estate taxes are low is because we don't have a really good school system. That's what the rumor is on the street. So what can be done for the school system, for the education system in Delaware that can be better than where we are today?
So there are two problems with our school system right now in Delaware from what I see it. One is a problem of quality, and the other is a problem of equality. With respect to the problem of quality, it's interesting. I agree with you. Most professionals I know in Newcastle County either send their kids to private school, to they move to Pennsylvania and go to public school, pay higher taxes and go to public school, or in some cases are able to send their kids to a higher end charter school, a Wilmington charter, a Newark charter, MOT charter, right? And that's not acceptable. You want every family, you don't want families to have a choice of having to either pay exorbitant private school tuition or leave the state of Delaware to get a quality education. There are extraordinary things going on, Kemal, in Delaware public schools. I had the opportunity to go to China in 2018 on a delegation of elected officials from across the country. I set up a phone call, a video call, like a Skype call. I think we use WeChat to connect Chinese kids going to Beijing International School with Delaware kids going to Downs Elementary. We got on a video call. It was 8 o'clock at night. I was in Beijing. It was 8 o'clock in the morning in Newark at the same time. They got on the video call. The Delaware kids, 4th and 5th graders at Downs Elementary, they were speaking fluent Chinese. The Chinese kids were speaking fluent English. The Delaware kids are in a Chinese immersion program that was created over 10 years ago by Governor Jack Markell, an extraordinary program. The American elected officials who were with me in Beijing in the room, their jaws were dropping. They walked out saying, Delaware has the best public schools. They're like, those are public school. They're like, they couldn't believe it. They were regular Delaware kids, 4th and 5th graders speaking Chinese. Programs like that need to be invested in. It need to be invested in heavily. There are other nuggets of extraordinary things going on across our state's public school system that we need to invest in. We need to also look around the country at best practices, best examples. Let's look at some of our extraordinary school systems, what they do right. For me as a teacher, I can tell you it starts with a school leader, with a principal. I have never in my experience teaching, I have never in my experience in public life seen a great school with a bad principal, nor have I seen a bad school with a great principal. You have to get a great leader, and great teachers will follow. So we're going to look hard at that. I'm not saying the principals we have now are insufficient or substandard. We have to make sure we recruit, retain, and train outstanding individuals, many of which are probably already in our system. So we're going to put in plans in place to do just that. But there's also an equality problem, Kemal. I think there's no way to compare the education that our students are getting in Bancroft and Bayard with the education kids are getting out at North Star, at Charter School of Wilmington, at Friends, Tower Hill, schools like that. We need to work really hard to upgrade the funding, make sure we're doing everything we can to recruit, retain and train the highest quality teachers and professionals to go into our schools that are showing reading proficiency levels 10, 15, 20%. That's not acceptable in 2023.
And I think it does take time to see the progress, especially in the education where things that you may start today, you may not be able to see the results in the next 8 to 10 years. But I think the right programs, and I agree with you, there has to be more specialized programs. I didn't know the one that you mentioned with the one with the China example, but I'm actually, on one hand, I'm glad that I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about all these issues. On the other hand, I have at least 500-600 families who rely on me and who rely on us to make things better for the place that we live in, the state that we live in. So if they're not able to afford private schools, many of them can't. So can they safely trust the public system? And that's where we want to see this state. I want to see Delaware in the top 10 of every good metrics. And just one of the things with the obesity, we are number 3 in the youth obesity. And you may already know this, but Dr. Erkan from Krias and American.
You interviewed him, right? I think I saw part of the interview. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He and we do Bariatric Fridays on every Friday at 3 p.m. And we discuss morbid obesity issues. And like looking at the statistics, that always kind of depresses me in a way that, like, why are we like the worst number 3 on the morbid obesity or obesity, like other stuff? And I think there's so much potential. That's what I was trying to say. And I mean, I'm hoping that we can do more things. Now, my next topic for you is healthcare. Now, we are in healthcare. And
I'm listening, Kemal. I'm turning off my video for a minute so I can grab a plug and plug in. Just keep talking. I'm listening. I'm here.
So from our core business standpoint, healthcare is our main focus, and I think it would be probably fair to say that if there is still a private practice in the state of Delaware, that's because of me and United Medical. And if it wasn't us fighting for the last several years, probably the big hospital systems would take over our practices. And we have seen these examples in many of the specialties. For example, in the surgery, at least 4 or 5 different surgical groups join one of the hospital systems. I think it would be fair to say it's Christiana Hospital, just because there wasn't any choices for them. So when we have these issues, one of the problems that I see from the state standpoint, just because we are labeled as for-profit, although we have zero difference. Just an example, if you drive on 95 southbound, you'll see a huge billboard. It says kale hell or kale like the vegetable kale. Yeah,
Christiana Care, right?
Christiana Care. So they spend $6,000 on that this monthly, because I have my billboard right after that. That's how much I pay. $6,000, just it says kale. So, and it is a nonprofit, and using tax dollars money, but us, we have to earn everything, but then we cannot benefit. One of the things that I know you were part of during the pandemic, getting the almost 300 million, right, from the federal government. You were
for Delawareans. Yeah.
And yet, just because we were labeled as for-profit, we actually don't really get either enough credit or enough support. In your leadership, do you see a change of the perspective to for-profit healthcare organizations?
Yeah, great question, Kemal. We have a healthcare crisis in our state, I believe. That's not something I'm making up. That's something I'm hearing from residents. That's something I'm seeing in data. It is a problem with physical and particularly mental health care here in Newcastle County and in Kenton-Sussex County in particular. I don't know how much United Medical operates in Kenton-Sussex County, but almost all like, do you operate down there?
I have, so I should, normally I do mention those in the beginning, but I forgot to mention that I have about 115,000 patients at the primary care level in the state of Delaware. That's about 14% of the population. Now we have about 22, 23 different specialties, and we have offices from all the way from Bethany Beach all the way up to North Wilmington. Now, there's United Medical Clinics, which are operated and owned by me, and then there are also clients who are part of United Medical ACO. For example, Dr. Jonah Bora. Earlier, I was saying that if there's a private practice still in business in Delaware, I would be the reason for that. But if there's a primary care in Sussex County, she's the reason for that. She's one of our clients, and she has 7, 8 different primary care physicians. And the difficulty is big. So finding providers, hiring them, retaining them, finding support staff is these days, quality support staff is extremely challenging. So, but because we are labeled as private practice, like for example, for my surgery center, American Surgery Center, we have offered our ventilators during the crisis of the pandemic to the hospitals, just so that there are 3 extra ventilators. They didn't take that offer. Now I have these all in writing. And there is this really anti-private practice movement from the big hospital systems. And they get a lot of support. I mean, just an example, even Joe Biden goes and gets his vaccine where CCHS stand is right behind. So this right now you see United Medical. So this is my show, right? But then Joe Biden, that picture is even published in Turkey, and then right behind that is Christiana Hospital. I would be okay if he did it at St. Francis, because, and I don't know how familiar you are with the hospital systems. St. Francis is struggling, and if St. Francis goes down, things could be even worse in the Newcastle County, because even with a small capacity, they do keep certain balance. And
right, competition is good for the consumer.
So with all those, what can we expect from you? So I have about 180 providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, close to, I would say, 750 to 800 staff employees between under the Accountable Care Organization. What kind of support or what kind of changes can we expect from the new leadership?
What you're going to see from the Meyer administration is that we believe there is a crisis of care in Newcastle County, but particularly in Sussex and Kent County, where people cannot get access, particularly to primary care in Newcastle County and in Kent and Sussex County. And in Sussex and Kent County, what I hear is getting a specialist takes months and months and months, usually for basic and sometimes somewhat urgent care. There was individuals, I think it was in Clayton, Delaware, who were telling me a few months ago, it was taking them 5 months to schedule an MRI. In this day and age in Delaware, in an advanced society, that's not acceptable. So we're going to look broadly at the system to understand how do we get, it's a supply-demand problem. The demand is increasing. Certainly our population is increasing. And so we got to make sure the number of providers is increasing. Some of that, as you mentioned, is a staffing issue. We got to make sure our nursing schools, our high schools through pathways programs, our medical schools, our PA schools are turning out enough individuals. Have already come out very openly that we need a medical school right here in Delaware. I know Sussex County is intent on making sure it's in Sussex County, and I'm certainly open to that. But I think it's true of nursing schools, making sure that you're able to staff your, I mean, my guess is, Kemal, if you were able to open another 3, 4 facilities, staffing them would become a huge, huge challenge. And so we got to make sure that we're looking at the whole ecosystem. What's the root cause of some of these problems where my constituents, my bosses are coming to me and saying, it's taking 6 months, 9 months to get basic care. That's not the way it should be in an advanced society. I travel outside the country, Kemal. I know you have obviously spent a significant part of your life my guess is if you have money in a place like Turkey or Kenya, where I lived, or even Iraq, you can get an appointment within a week or two. And it's kind of embarrassing when I say I went to Kenya and I actually got faster and more, not necessarily better care, but faster and more efficient care, sometimes less expensive care than I got right here at home in Delaware. So we got to work on that.
So I think, and I want you to kind of really think about this. Not like I'm not expecting an answer right now, but just for our state officials to understand what struggles we have to go through. I mean, 30% of the population we serve is Medicaid right now from my practices. So
look, Kemal, I think what you're saying to me is that nonprofit, correct me if I'm wrong, nonprofit healthcare providers are getting advantages over for-profit health providers, and it's just not fair. And I generally agree with that premise. I don't understand why nonprofits are given preferential treatment. My guess is some of it might be CMS guidelines or federal law, federal regulation. Insofar as it's within the state, I will do whatever I can to increase the quality and efficiency of care of the people of Delaware. And if that includes changing some of the rules with respect to privately owned facilities versus nonprofits, I'm willing to look at that.
But I just want to give you one final example, so then I put it in perspective for you. Mm-hmm. If someone has a gallbladder surgery, and if this is done in the hospital setting, Medicare pays $12,000. Now these are public, so I'm giving you average numbers. Mm-hmm. There are cases that they would pay more, there's a little bit less, but the average is $12,000. Same procedure when we do it at the surgery center, at American Surgery Center, Medicare payment is $2,100. So that's about, at the hospital setting, 6 times more. Now, I always look at it, so yeah, I have a horse in the business, horse in the race because I own the business. But if I'm a patient, let's say if I'm a Medicare patient and I still have to pay 20% of the allowable amount, so 20% of 12,000 versus 20% of 2,100 is huge for the patient, from the patient standpoint. So, one of the reasons that I love what I do is because it's not just money. It's as we do what we do in a better way, more efficiently, we actually see the results anyway. So then I don't have to really worry about business side of it much. We focus on healthcare part, like the quality part. So I just wanted to kind of like think about that for maybe for our later discussion, because I do want you to hopefully come back in 2024 before the primary, so maybe we can do another round with this. Sure. Now, I want to actually ask you another question, because I know it seems like the media actually covered this as you are the first one who came out, but I was in a meeting in December, on December 8th, 2022, and I don't know if you were there. This was a meeting at DuPont, Hotel DuPont. And I remember Lieutenant Governor Bethany starting her campaign there. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think she was endorsed by the governor. So I may be wrong. I didn't verify this, but I was in the meeting. So it wasn't like a meeting. It was just a gathering. It was her starting her campaign. Am I missing something there? So is she?
Oh, no, I wasn't invited to the meeting. I've been told I'm the only announced candidate. And with regard to endorsements and things like that, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to those. I think every person needs to make a decision who to vote for. There are a lot of people that in history who get a whole lot of endorsements who don't do very well at the polls. So what we plan to do is make an appeal to people that we have a vision for this state. We have executed an impressive vision at the county that has returned real results for Delawareans and for residents of this county, whether it's being able to go to Wegmans, which they never could do before, or for kids who grew up without much technology having an opportunity to learn computer programming, or people that came into temporary crisis and didn't have a home, providing a place for people to live. We've done a lot of exciting, cool things, decreased taxes in the county. We're excited about bringing that new vision for our state to Delaware. I should also add, as someone, Kemal, you know this because you've lived a number of places. Delaware is an extraordinary place. It's a small place where you can get a lot done. We like to say we punch above our weight. I mean, it's kind of incredible. The president right now, of course, is a Newcastle County resident. He spends an awful lot of time in Sussex. He's undoubtedly a Delaware resident. And there are things we can get done. There are things we can get done quickly. We can think about healthcare in different ways, where we actually solve some of the most pressing healthcare issues that nobody else in the country is solving. We address educate, like we could be the first state in the country that offers Chinese and Spanish language immersion to every child entering public schools in our state. There's no state in the country that does that. We can do it. We're small enough. We can bring people together. We can dedicate resources and do it. Delaware is also special because we have something that I like to call the Delaware dividend. If you, Kemal, I'm not recommending this. Please don't do this. But if you never went to work a day in 2023, and if no Delawareans went to work a day in 2023, our state budget, a third of our state budget, over 30%, would already be paid for through franchise tax fees and other corporate services. That's extraordinary. You have nearly every major corporation in the world is sending money to Delaware. That's a dividend we should be using to make our schools better, to make our healthcare system better, to make sure we have some of the highest quality housing stock and most affordable housing in the country. And those are the things we're going to focus on as your next governor, regardless of where the endorsements are and who's announcing when for the position.
So now I want to ask you one final question related to this. And just because you are brave, so when you started this race, and not, having maybe enough endorsements from the beginning. And I'm not like, I was part of Jack Markell campaign in 2008.
As was I in 2008, as was I.
So, and if you remember the primaries, and Jack actually was not the favorite because he was not endorsed by the party or by the
But he was a favorite of the majority of the people, and that's all that mattered.
So, and it was 1,500 votes on the primary that made him the governor for the primary election. And what I learned, and I worked with him, I also served on his transition committee for that year. So what I know, endorsement is not everything. But at the same time, when you have really strong candidates, and you have, like with this, you have to deal with tough questions. But I do see Bethany Hall Long as a very strong candidate. So just from the position that she's already in, her background in healthcare and education makes her one of those very strong candidates. What would you say? What separates you from her to win this election?
We have an urgency about how we do business, addressing things for the most vulnerable Delawareans, and we have a record of accomplishment to show that. Whether it's the Hope Center, whether it's our program 1,000 Kids Coding, or whether it's countless other initiatives partnering with Delaware State to develop an advanced genomics lab, doing all this in county government with roughly a $300 million budget, as opposed to the state with a $6 billion budget. We're going to do exciting and new things to move our state forward. We're going to bring people together from across our state. We're going to work in Kent and Sussex County to move their economies forward, address issues of healthcare, affordable housing, and particularly in Sussex County, of growth, things we've worked on in Newcastle County. We have a record of success. We're determined to illustrate that record to the people of Delaware, to show our vision, and to go forward together in a way that's really exciting for the people of Delaware. And when you do that, whoever decides to run or not run is not really our concern.
Well, no, I appreciate that. That's a good answer, and this is going to be tough, and everyone is going to put their best out there, and I'm wishing you the best luck, best wishes. Now, for those who want to donate, your main campaign website is mattmeyer.org, right?
That's right, mattmeyer.org. You can donate your obviously with your pocketbook, with your wallet. You can also donate with your time. We've built hundreds and hundreds of volunteers already, which is another reason why I think endorsements in this sort of the insider game is not relevant to most people. We're building a movement. We're getting support up and down the state since our announcement. That's really exciting, and you should join us to help build a vision about how our state can move forward.
Well, will do, and I appreciate for you being our guest. And I know I already mentioned this, but we would like you to come back before the primary election in 2024. And at that time, I think things are going to be more shaped up as we will be in the race a little bit longer. And thank you for joining us again. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Kemal. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so Matt Meyer was our guest, and I know we are a little bit short with time, but Sean is here with me. And Sean, how are you doing? You're not bored.
No. Okay.
So, well, this was a good discussion. So, as you can see, like everyone is going to put their best out there.
Yeah.
Getting to know candidates are going to be important for everyone. It's going to be important for everyone. So you'll have so many others. Actually, everyone who's running will be our guest, regardless of our position. Unfortunately, Republicans in the state of Delaware, they're sleeping, so they don't respond to any of the invites. So it's open for everyone. Although we are working with two Republicans, not from the state of Delaware, but one is running for the presidential election, maybe for 2024. And one of the congressmen also is, I don't want to just mention the names yet, but they will be confirmed in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
But we have a little bit less time than what I was hoping for. But
that's fine. Yeah, I think the topic that we have kind of set up actually does relate a lot to the elections coming up. As you know, these elections, a big topic going forward is going to be the economy and what we're seeing most recently. And actually, just earlier this week, Wednesday, the announcement of the U.S. credit downgrade and kind of the impact that we're seeing there, not only on the stock market, but also the future outlook, where it's predicting that there's probably going to be a recession now at the end of this year. So obviously, it's a big issue that should be addressed in these candidacies and their election pursuit for these specific positions, whether it's Congress, governor, wherever seat they're actually pursuing. Because as we know, the economy does impact everybody, regardless if you want to follow it or not. It's going to impact you. You know, that trickle down into your healthcare. So I think it's something that should be talked about and solid.
So, you know how these things are, like when we were talking about and getting ready for these sessions, it's been almost again 2 years, getting into 2 years with you in this program. So a lot of things that we are talking about, sometimes if we don't get the reaction from people, they don't see the things that we do see, the way that we see them, and or they just don't want to be bothered just because they have this opinion versus that opinion, or they belong to this party or that party. And we try to keep our we try to keep things objective and try to be in the middle as independent. But global currency, when we first start talking about it, no one really understands why I brought that up. And just because there's so many different indicators that you see from different parts of the world, and we read part of it. And now maybe after 12 to 14 months later from the first discussion, we see our grading goes from AAA to AA plus, which has huge impact, potential impact, not just at the highest level of the government, but individual level from the
definitely.
Right?
Yep. So anywhere from, mortgage rates, again, that interest on your borrowing, that can be increased again, which we already saw it starting to increase even in this past, 10 months or so. start to spike up. I mean, you have that. You also have just even on credit cards, that borrowing rate there, where that consumer debt now, these interest rates may be a little too much for people to handle. I mean, they tried downplaying it, saying that the downgrade was going from the absolute optimum level of AAA just down one notch to AA plus. So you shouldn't be that worried. However, obviously, it's pretty significant considering it's only the second time it's happened in U.S. history of that having that downgrade. So should be alarming. I think
But this never happened to us.
it was the second time, the downgrade.
When was the last time?
I believe it was 2011 was what they're referencing.
2011. So that's
Is it 2011, or unless that's the date I'm confusing that with.
so maybe, but even if it's like 2011, so it happened twice in the history. So this is a really big problem. So as this is going to impact the borrowing cost, the investors' confidence, currency value, market reaction, and other economic impacts at the individual consumer level. So this is, on one hand, we hear the president saying that everything is great, so we are doing so well. But then the vice president goes out there and she says many Americans are $400 away from bankruptcy. If they have unexpected expense, $400, they would not make it. So
I believe it.
We see it. Sometimes we may be in a denial, but the thing is, it's real.
Yeah.
There's some part of the country, like very small part, that's spending a lot of money. So certain things become even more and more expensive. But then when you look at the middle class, that's getting smaller and smaller. And there has to be some understanding of what we are going through. Just saying that we are doing great is not going to make it. Just like the crime issue in Delaware, I had to videotape the exit that I'm taking to show other people what I'm seeing. Yeah. So I shouldn't have five bagger while I'm at the red light.
Right.
I go home, not because I'm bothered by them, but I know why they're there. They're trying to get money, so they can't do it from somewhere else.
Right.
This is a real issue. Now, one of our project field trip is.
You want to go into Kensington?
So why are we doing it?
Well,
because I don't believe some of the videos that we are seeing.
You want to test the windows.
That's no reason why. So no, that's not the reason. But right, so some of the videos are so bad. I personally think that they are not real. On one hand, but on the other hand,
or maybe you don't want to believe that it's real.
Yes. So, but that's why we're going to go and videotape what's really happening. So this is a project after we come back. So I'll be out for 2 weeks, but last week of August we are back, right? So third week. So sometime probably in September, we are going to have our own videos to show people what is really happening, and that's why I'm doing certain things in the Wilmington area as well. There is a pretty large issue, like having a primary care office spending so much money to provide services for patients, and thinking that we have a really good location there, you can attract a lot of people, you can provide a lot of good services, but then if they cannot walk from the parking lot to the office, that's a problem. Now, that's not the issue today, but if it's not taken care of now, I see that in the near future. So that's why we are worried about this. Now, when I come back from our little break, we'll be discussing more issues. Sean and I, we have a lot of other things to discuss. We prep for you guys, but that's going to be after we come back now. 3 p.m. in 4 minutes, we have Bariatric Friday. We are going to actually take a little detour and discuss the risk and complications of bariatric surgery from a different angle. So this is one of the recent developments that we heard Lisa Presley and the outcome of her autopsy, and how actually it's, in our opinion, mislabeled, and how it's kind of scaring some people. So Dr. Erkan is going to join me, and then we're going to cover that, and we'll be back in 2 weeks after that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Sean. Thank you.
Of course.